Hi, I hope the Know Yourself exercise went well and that you found some value in that. I know I did. It's very, very important for us to sit down and reflect, particularly when it comes time for stress management and figuring out what our triggers are. So what are the risks of stress? We've talked about what it is. We've talked about our stress reactions. Let's say it's irritability or shutting down or something like that. What are the risks to operations? We're operational people. We're in a high-risk environment. So what? So we're irritable. Big deal. What's going to happen there? Not much, right? I'm just going to be snappy once in a while. Well, let's think about that. Under stress, what's really interesting is it becomes now about me and not about us. Because remember, stress is designed to really allow us to survive, preserve our own lives. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. That's what it's designed to do. So when we're feeling stressed out, it's very, very difficult for us to think outside of ourselves. And if you're in a leadership position, well, the first job of leadership is to connect with the individuals. Well, if you're so stressed out that you're not hearing things, that you're only thinking about yourself, you're disconnected from the team. And that has dire consequences because they're not going to be providing you with information. They're not going to be wanting to talk to you. Heck, they're not even going to want to be around you. So that is a big, big problem. The auditory exclusion, so where the subconscious starts to filter. Well, what's interesting is it's shutting down or it's filtering to protect us and really allow us to fix problems. But it's really interesting because the information that's probably coming in, whether it be via radio, cell phone, text nowadays, on your mobile workstation, your MWS, whatever the case is, that's probably information that will actually help you solve the problem. But the irony is, auditory exclusion means it's being shut off, for example. Tunnel vision is another one. So it's really important for focus, but literally, you are seeing this much of an instance. So if you're on the fire ground, if you're dealing with a patient, you're doing patient care, you're in an emergency operations center and you're so focused, you're forgetting everything else out here, that's a big problem. So our ability to gather information, to communicate effectively, goes out the window under stress. So those are just some examples of the short-term impacts and risks to operations. Now, remember I spoke about stress being short-term. So it's that saber-toothed tiger, the fight, the flight, maybe the freeze. And I'm just going to be under stress long enough that I can fight it out and deal with this. Well, unfortunately, we are starting to see or have seen the impact of a short-term condition, i.e. stress, now becoming part of a chronic, really an epidemic, if you will. Now, amongst first responders and those that work in high-risk environments, the impacts of long-term stress are well known, not terribly understood, and I'm really, really glad to see the stigma is starting to be removed around mental health and mental illness and the impact of critical incident stress and dealing with just bad things time and time again. And what's really interesting is the fact that critical incident stress, for example, and we're not going to deep dive into it here today, it's actually not just necessarily one particular incident. It's not a fatality involving a child or something like that or a family member. It can actually be the accumulation of many, many incidents that not one has been kind of the tipping point, but the accumulation, all that scar tissue psychologically will build up and has some really, really bad effects. Physically now, remember the fact that the stress is designed for short term, so the non-vital body functions get shut down. Talked about digestion, talked about the immune system. Well, people start getting sick more often. And I know even for me, when I get burned out, whether it be on an operation, prolonged campaign issue, being in the EOC, constantly making decisions, or maybe I'm really, really busy at work, or on the personal front, just lots going on, you can start to feel burned out. And then for me, a real good indicator is I start to get sick. It's almost like clockwork, and it's kind of crazy that way. Also, you're going to start seeing, the diet starts to deteriorate. And as a result, you're not eating healthy. and so on and so forth. So the short-term impacts operationally are very, very problematic in terms of operational risks, your ability to gain information and communicate effectively. Long-term, we're really talking about more chronic health issues, whether it be mental health or physical health. If we're not handling the stress properly in the moment, then how could it not impact us long-term? So hopefully we've given you some ideas around the importance of stress, that we actually need it to be in the flow, be in the zone, be in a flow state. We've also talked about what happens under too much stress when we talked about the Yerkes-Dodson curve and it crashes. So cognitively, things start to degrade. Heart rate goes up. The list goes on and on and on. We've talked about the self-assessment, and that is a really, really important part of stress management, recognizing stress in yourself and by association, the impact that it has on other people.